Ethics in psychology experiments. Why the rules exist. Psychology has not always been ethical. In the early days of psychological research, scientists were focused on results, not on participant well-being. People were stressed, deceived, and sometimes harmed in the name of science. Because of this history, modern psychology follows strict ethical guidelines. In the United Kingdom, these are set out by the British Psychological Society. These rules exist for a reason. Let's explore each key ethical principle, why it exists, and what happened when it was ignored. Informed consent. Informed consent means that participants must know what they are agreeing to before taking part. They should understand what will happen, what the risks are, and that participation is voluntary. This principle exists because researchers once treated people as test subjects, not as individuals. One example is the Little Albert experiment. In this study, a baby was conditioned to fear rats using loud noises. There was no consent from the child and no clear parental understanding of the long-term consequences. Another example is Milgram's obedience study. Participants believed they were delivering painful electric shocks. They were not fully informed about the true nature of the study. A third example is Zimbardo's Stanford Prison Experiment. Participants agreed to a study, but were not informed how intense and distressing their experience would become. Because of studies like these, informed consent is now essential. Right to withdraw. The right to withdraw means participants can leave a study at any time. They do not need to give a reason, and their data should be removed if they request it. This principle exists because participants were once pressured to continue even when distressed. In Milgram's study, participants are told phrases like, "The experiment requires that you continue." Many believed they were not allowed to stop. In the Stanford Prison Experiment, participants became emotionally distressed but felt trapped in their roles. In the David Reimer case, withdrawal was effectively impossible, leading to long-term psychological harm. Modern ethics make it clear. No study is more important than the participants' well-being. Protection from harm. Protection from harm means research should not cause physical or psychological damage. Any risk must be minimal and clearly justified. This principle exists because harm was once ignored. In Milgram's study, participants showed intense stress, sweating, trembling, and anxiety. In the Stanford Prison Experiment, participants experienced humiliation, fear, and emotional breakdowns. In the monster study, children were deliberately made anxious about their speech, causing long-lasting self-esteem issues. These studies showed that psychological harm can be just as serious as physical harm. Today, researchers must stop studies if harm becomes likely. Deception. Deception means deliberately misleading participants about the true purpose of a study. This principle exists because deception can remove informed consent. However, some research cannot work without it. Milgram used deception to study obedience. Participants believed the shocks were real. The Asch conformity experiments used deception by planting actors among real participants. The Good Samaritan study misled participants about the real aim to measure helping behavior. Because deception can undermine trust, it must be justified, cause no harm, and always be followed by debriefing. Debriefing means explaining the true purpose of the study after participation. It exists to restore trust and reduce distress. In Milgram's study, participants were carefully debriefed and reassured no harm was caused. In the ASH studies, participants were told why deception was necessary. In modern research, debriefing may also include support resources if emotional discomfort occurred. Debriefing turns participation into a learning experience, not a negative one. Privacy and confidentiality. Privacy means participants control what information is shared. Confidentiality means their data is protected and anonymized. This principle exists because personal data was once exposed. In early clinical case studies, patients were identifiable. In the HM case study, the participant's identity was initially hidden to protect privacy. In modern research, names are removed, data is stored securely, and access is restricted. Without confidentiality, people would not trust researchers. Ethical review. Finally, ethical review ensures research is checked before it begins. Researchers must explain the purpose, the risks, and the safeguards. This principle exists because individual researchers cannot always judge their own bias. Ethics committees exist to protect participants, researchers, and psychology itself. Ethical guidelines are not barriers to research, they are safeguards. They exist because psychology learned from its mistakes. Modern ethics ensure that participants are respected, harm is minimized, and science progresses responsibly. Psychology advances best when it protects the people who make that research possible.
If you enjoyed our channel, please click subscribe.